back and prepared for a divisional clash against their divisional rivals, the Indianapolis Colts. We're breaking down the hot takes, key matchups, and just getting you hyped up for this game day edition of Sports Social Live. Let's get it. Yeah. I'm gonna run the intro back. You gotta feel it because I'm hyped up. It's a big day, a big weekend, and I like going live. I like going live. I'm Lance Hayes with Sports Social Live, doing what I like to do best, and that's talk about the Houston Texans. I'm your number one global Texans fan, and I'm here giving my all for this episode of Sports Social Live. So let's keep it moving and keep it rolling. In today's episode, it's a game day episode. When you're playing football, you have to get in the game day mode. I'm like Ray Lewis with my fanship. I'm Ray Lewis with my fanship. I'm hyped up. I'm going Mamba mode, Ray Lewis. It's game day. So let's talk about it. The Houston Texans are 5-2, taking on the 4-3 Indianapolis Colts in a divisional rivalry, a matchup. I am excited for this game. Some might say that this game is one of those games where you just never know what's going to happen. And if you look at the bottom of your screen, I have the all-time record up of 33-12-1 with the Colts leading. But I can't blame the Texans for kind of going on this drought, from 02 to now. You got to look at it. They had Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James. They had some studs throughout the career. And the Texans killer was on the Indianapolis Colts, T.Y. Hilton. I can't stand T.Y. Hilton. I loved him on my fantasy team for the Texans game, but I did not like T.Y. when he was going up against us in anytime. The dude just killed the Texans. So with this divisional rivalry, divisional matchup, we have to look at the Houston Texans versus Colts game at home at being one of those turning point games for the Texans. This can show where the Texans are at against a solid Colts team. Let's be clear, this is not an easy matchup for either team, but the Texans have kind of to look at themselves in the mirror and see what type of team they are, especially the Texans O-line. The Texans O-line is going to be going through a mental kind of shakeup and just trying to see where they are as men, because they are being tested and they're going through adversity, as well as Bobby Slowick. But that O-line, everybody has been on the O-line's head. It's a question and it's a post on every page about the Texans O-line. So can the Texans O-line stand up, rise up, nut up, and go and clash against these Indianapolis Colts? That's going to be a question. I'm going to be watching that matchup. It's great. Hey, it's game day. It's a game day weekend. So I want to transition a little bit into talking about the AFC South outlook. The AFC South outlook is pretty destitute at the bottom, but this Colts matchup, and it's the last Colts matchup of the year, is, well, hopefully, playoff times, you never know what happens. But looking at this Colts matchup, it is actually one that can change the tide of the division. The Colts were to be successful here, we'll have matching records, and the Colts have ability to go on, and be better than the Texans if they do win this game. Let's think about it. The Texans have a hard schedule left, or relatively difficult schedule. If you look at the 10-day makeup that they have in a couple of games, they're playing 3 games in 10 days at one point this season. That will be difficult for any team. The Chiefs, the 49ers, is a hard thing to do. It's kind of not safe. I don't know why the NFL chooses to do such a thing. But the Texans have a 3-game, 10-day stretch in this season. The Texans also have to play the New York or New Jersey, whatever they are, Jets, a tough Jets team, a tough defensive team. So the schedule is kind of a rough part of the schedule in this second quarter going into the third quarter of the NFL season. So this game is going to be a matchup that it kind of changes the tide. This is where you want to see what your team really is by week 7, week 8 of the NFL season. You want to see what type of team you have. And the AFC South is definitely going to show us what's going to go on because the Indianapolis Colts are ready. Shane Steichen is going to coach a good team. Anthony Richardson is getting the most of out of what he can do. I don't think he's that good of a quarterback, but he's good enough to get the wins when he can. So I'm excited to see this matchup and the players ball out in these games. These games against the Colts and the Texans show you the most random people stand up and become kind of just icons in the matchup. T.Y. Hilton did it a while back. You go and Pierce for the Colts did it this year, and he's doing it again. Another take the top off of the defense receiver for the Colts. You have to be kind of just surprised. I'm not surprised with it, but I like what the Colts are bringing. They're a solid team all around, and it's going to be a matchup for the division. Speaking of a matchup for the division and kind of just outmatched set of people, our offensive line is on trial. The Texans' offensive line, and you can see them here, are on trial. And the number one culprit that you can see standing right next to your big paycheck guy, Kenyon Green. Kenyon Green is on trial this week, everybody. Kenyon Green is going to be picked on. He's going to go through with this game, and it's going to be a test to see if he wants to keep on getting those high-paid NFL checks because I think this game is going to change his trajectory. Is he going to nut up against this stout front seven for the Indianapolis Colts, who will be getting back DeForest Buckner, and they have solid front linemen? He's going to get work this game. If I'm the Colts, I'm throwing nothing but all-out blitzes through Kendrick Green's gaps just to make sure that he's solid or we get what we want. I'm going straight at Kendrick. I'm going straight at the Texas offensive line, period. So these guys are on watch. I want to see what they're going to do. Everybody went from, oh, we're going to make the changes. This is what's needed. This is what you heard from D'Amico. But then, you get some different things going in there. I want to see what Kenyon Green is going to do. Because if Kenyon Green can't get it done and he's starting the game, he needs to be benched. And let's bring in Kendrick Green and let's make some adjustments. We can slide Blake Fisher in there. I'd rather see a mix and a modification of the offensive line and see people who have that tenacity and are just a better effort. Because if the Texans were average, they have a possibility of being undefeated. I'm going to repeat that again. If the Texans were average, they would have the possibility. Excuse me, let me correct that statement. If the Texans O-line was average, they would have the possibility of being undefeated this season. And you have to take into account that the Texans O-line is the reason why the team is suffering. Yes, the DBs have had issues, but relatively minimal issues compared to the Texans O-line subpar play. Pro Football Focus graded Kenyon Green at a 23. That is piss poor and terrible. And we can bring a high school lineman up there who will give more of an effort than Kenyon Green. So Kenyon Green, buddy, you're on trial this week. I want to see you be successful. At least play average, and we'll be okay right there. So the Texas O-line is one of my things that we have to watch this game. I'm not going to let up off them. They're going to have to play and show me something. I also have a question for Shaq Mason because Shaq Mason has not been doing great. And I think that it's kind of getting masked by the play of defenses who want to just run trains, on Kenyon Green. We have to watch Shaq Mason as well. Then Titus Howard starts getting whooped all over the field. The line as a whole has to play at least average. And that's what it's sad that I'm shooting for average, but play to par and the Texans will be successful. I think CJ can get the ball to who needs to get the ball. Joe Mixon can run the ball solid enough if the O-line is average. O-line, you're on trial for me this time. But going into something that I think is a big part of what's going on, and it will be a change, an X factor in the game. the receivers are the X factor of this game for me. I think both sides have threats. You have Tank Dell, who's been kind of a fly under the radar receiver this season. They know he has a talent, but he hasn't shown what he can truly do this season. And he's dropped some pretty critical passes. And then you have Pierce on the other side of the ball for Indianapolis Colts, who can be a threat and to take off the top of the defenses. Both guys are going into this game healthy. They're able to kind of produce for the teams. So to see these two guys go at it will be great. Go at the defenses will be great for both teams. The Colts safeties aren't the best either. So I feel like people are just forgetting that the Colts safeties are not the best. They do well in against teams, but I am excited to see how the receiving cores on both sides of the ball choose to attack the DBs. I think the Texans with Diggs, Dell, Hutchinson will have an opportunity to be successful if the Texans O-line is able to be average, as I mentioned before. The Colts, I believe, are going to have a more of a struggle because the Texans front line will not allow the Texans Anthony Richardson to kind of get loose as he did before. And the Texans DBs are good enough to get within that one step to make something happen and possibly cause an interception, like we saw last week with Neville Hewitt got down there and then Tank Dell dropped the ball. But Neville Hewitt, Hanson, and the linebacking core can put some pressure on that front set, put some pressure on the Indianapolis Colts O-line, making Anthony Richardson, who is not the most accurate quarterback, be inaccurate. So that's one of the X factors I have, the receiving cores on both sides, and it kind of wraps into the O-lines on both sides as well. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things going on with X factors, but another X factor on both sides of the ball is the running backs. So what's going to happen with the running backs? Joe Mixon, stud. Joe Mixon's a stud, gamer. He's going to ball. We know he's going to ball. We know he's going to get what he has to do, get on the ground, whether he's tackled or touched in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage. Joe Mixon is going to be a pivotal piece on the team as it stands now. So I want to see what happens with the team and how Joe Mixon is able to kind of play this game, because it's going to be one of those ones where Joe Mixon 1, Joe Mixon 2. Does he pop one long one? We shall see. Also, you have Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce, Joe Mixon looks like they're getting on a tandem. As long as offensive line blocks, I think both of those guys will be a successful running back core for the Texans, and we should see them ball out. And I have this. Let's see. I had a little notification up here. What the heck? So, can the Texans ball out this game? I think they will. I think the running backs on both sides will be stout, as what they call it. And I like Jonathan Taylor as well for both teams. If Jonathan Taylor is healthy, he was injured earlier in the season. So the running back cores, receiving cores, hey, it's kind of offensive on both sides, but I think that's going to be what we have to watch as a key matchup for this game. And another key matchup and a hot take, and I've been talking about it, and people don't want to talk about it that much, but it sounds like they're forgetting about it, is the coaching battle. So I'm bringing it up on the screen. Ryans versus Steichen. You saw it on my last stream, and you're seeing it on the stream today. Ryans versus Steichen will be a matchup in the game day brawl as far as strategy is concerned. Ryans is not a bad coach defensively, but it seems like he has to take that step to make a solid strategy and game management, game time decisions. That's the flaw on the Houston Texans, and you see that. You've seen that in multiple games where they have made these mental lapses, plays that I wish I could have got it back. I thought that play would be successful, but it wasn't. You've heard that too many times, and you don't hear that from an Andy Reid. You don't hear that from these top coaches. So I want to see if D'Amico and this team can make better game management decisions. Let's talk about Steichen for a little bit. He does not make too many mistakes with his talent. He is able to get the most out of the talent that he has. Anthony Richardson is kind of a reach of a quarterback. If you ask me, he's not bad, but he was a reach in as far as the Indianapolis Colts are concerned. But Steichen's able to get what he can out of them. And also, they make the hard calls when they have to make the hard calls, and they play to their personnel. This matchup will be a game day watch because I think that teams are starting to plan to put the Texans in positions to make hard decisions, and they're taking opportunity of that. They realize if you looked at the Green Bay Packers game, they realize the Texans are kind of discombobulated when there comes to a questionable or controversial call. They get discombobulated. Everybody's moving. They don't have the team set up on the field. So you see in teams like, hey, let's go, run the play, or hey, let me slow it down and get the Texans confused. And I think that's something that people are planning for when they play the Texans. I can see that. I saw that in the Vikings game as well. You saw Flores do that with his defense. He was able to kind of just have them move a little bit slower in one of the series that they had. It made the Texans kind of question things, and then they did a quick rotation right before snap, and then they put the Texans. I think they called it got a sack there. So there's a lot of things that coaches are doing to play with the Texans' game management and game time decision making. So D'Amico and Steichen, this battle will be great. I will be up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching this live on Sports Social Live across many different streaming platforms. Join me. Tap the subscribe, like, please share, add a friend, because this is what we're doing. We're having fun with the Houston Texans. It's going to be a great game, a phenomenal game. And I also want to make it known we do have Instagram, Sports Social TV, Twitter, Sports Social TV, YouTube, Sports Social Live, Facebook, Sports Social Live. So subscribe, like, share. And closing it out, I'm going to give you 20 minutes of time here on this whole podcast, and we have a few minutes left here. So the betting odds are kind of solidifying around -5 in the Texans' favor, with the over and under at 45.5. And if you can get different odds, different places, but this was Bet MGM here. I am excited for this game because I feel like if you're betting with me, you're going to get some money. I'm not betting this game based on Texans super fanship. I'm betting this game strategically, and strategically, it's better to take the Colts +5 than the Texans -5. I say it again, it's better to take the Colts +5 than the Texans -5 here. Why? Because the Texans just haven't shown enough. The Texans have not shown enough consistency. They have not shown that they can go out here and kind of be just disguise what they're doing. They're pretty scripted. Bobby Slowick is on the hot seat as well. I don't feel like they're going to be able to sustain enough drives with the running game to be able to kind of outscore this hungry Indianapolis Colts team. However, I do feel like the Indianapolis Colts will be able to stay with the Texans and make this a one-foot field goal game. The Texans have Kaimi Fairbairn, and he should be able to knock in a game-winning field goal or a field goal with time left on the clock, and the Texans defense should be able to make that stop. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Texans go out here and blow out these guys. However, realistically, and your pocketbook should be realistic, you should bet the +5 in favor of the Colts. That's what you should do. And the more wild side, I don't believe it's wild. I think the under will be what hits this game because of the slow pace. Both teams have calls and have calls turnovers and have turnovers happen against them. I think this game will be a game of mishaps. You're going to see an offensive line shakeup. You're going to see interceptions, probably from both sides, and you're going to see big plays being made randomly throughout the games. I also feel as if the Texans special teams, who has shown that from game 3 on that they are a solid core and one of the best special teams in the league, is going to be able to come up with a game-winning play to make the team to take the Texans over the edge. It's going to be Miami, and that's fine. One score wins is what's going on in this season. I'm Lance Hayes. It's Sports Social Live. Follow on Sports Social TV on X. Follow on Sports Social TV on IG. Follow, subscribe, like, share on YouTube. Lance Hayes, Sports Social Live. This is the end.